Accused of lab explosion. The janitor was stealing $200K equipment. The news hit like a thunderclap. The headline blared across social media and local news. Accused of lab explosion. The janitor was stealing $200K equipment. Michael, an unassuming janitor at prestigious university, found himself at the center of a scandal that shook the campus to its core. The explosion in the chemistry lab had been massive. Glass shattered, smoke billowed, and the sound echoed like a gunshot. It wasn't long before fingers started pointing directly at him. Michael could still feel the heat on his face when he had been pulled into the principal's office, a place he rarely entered. The grim faces of faculty and police officers mirrored his confusion. "You were seen in the lab just before the incident," one officer said, his tone dripping with accusation. The room felt small, suffocating. Michael's heart raced, the pounding in his chest echoing the loud whispers outside. "You stole equipment to fund your habits." They didn't even know him. He had spent years sweeping the same hallways, scrubbing floors that held secrets. But now he was the one caught in a web of lies. The disdain from colleagues stung. Whispers followed him like a shadow. "How could he?" they scoffed. "A janitor thinking he could handle lab equipment? Pathetic." But Michael knew he wasn't that kind of man. He longed to scream that he wasn't guilty. Caught in a storm of uncertainty, he decided to dig deeper. Something didn't add up. He recalled a conversation he'd overheard between Professor Stanton, the ambitious head of the department, and a shady contractor late one night. "We can cover it up. No one will question us," Stanton had said. The exchange flickered back in Michael's mind, a nagging voice whispering of something larger at play. His friend Lily, a lab assistant, became a prime suspect. She always looked stressed, juggling experiments and her emotions. He couldn't believe she'd be involved. But as rumors spread like wildfire, the tension between them soared. Accusations flew. Did she know more than she let on? Each encounter felt like a puzzle piece, slipping further away. One evening, Michael ventured into the lab again, following anonymous tips he'd received. Shadows flickered in the dim light, sending chills down his spine. As he entered, he overheard hushed voices discussing a theft. "We need to distract them," one figure muttered angrily. "Make it big enough that no one looks further." The weight of their words settled in Michael's chest like a stone. This wasn't just about the explosion. It was a cover-up for something far more dangerous. Moments later, the ground beneath him shook as another small blast erupted in a distant corridor. Panic gripped Michael as he realized the extent of the danger. Lives were at stake, including Lily's. He had a choice: risk everything to expose the truth, or let the system pin the blame on him. The walls felt like they were closing in, but the fear of losing his friend pushed him onward. He picked up his phone, ready to gather the evidence and confront the truth head-on. Then a piece of paper fluttered from a nearby desk, catching his eye. The words "secret funding" jumped out at him, and suddenly everything spun. What if he was wrong? What if he misjudged everyone involved? With his heart in his throat, Michael stepped back into the shadows, uncertainty swirling in a tempest around him. Antes de continuarmos com essa história incrível, preciso de fazer um alerta importante. Muitos inscritos têm relatado que o YouTube removeu suas inscrições sem aviso. Dá só uma conferida rápida no botão vermelho aí embaixo para garantir que você ainda está inscrito no canal. Não quero que você perca nenhum conteúdo exclusivo que vem por aí. E já que você está aí, deixa aquele like poderoso que me ajuda muito com o algoritmo. E me conta nos comentários de qual cidade você está assistindo. Adoro conhecer cada pessoa incrível que faz parte dessa comunidade. Sua participação faz toda a diferença. Vamos interagir. Michael stepped back into the shadows, uncertainty swirling in a tempest around him. His heart pounded in his chest, the paper fluttering ominously like a warning sign. The words "secret funding" echoed in his mind, raising more questions than answers. What did they mean? What kind of dirt was he walking into? Then a loud crash jolted him back to reality. The sound cut through the air like a knife, followed by panicked screams from the corridor. He froze, listening intently. Something was definitely off. The weight of something sinister pressed against him, urging him to act. He needed to find the source of that noise. With trembling hands, he pulled out his phone, ready to record everything. As he edged closer to the lab door, voices raised above the chaos caught his attention. "What do you mean she's gone? We needed her!" Michael's breath hitched. Lily. They were talking about Lily. Panic surged through him. Was she in danger? He couldn't let anything happen to her. Not now. He pushed the door open just a crack, peering inside. What he saw made his heart drop. Shadows moved erratically as two figures loomed over a third on the ground. Lily! She was on the floor, curled up, looking frightened and vulnerable. One of the figures, a masked man, held a syringe, while the other, revealed to be Professor Stanton, anxiously paced, his voice laced with desperation. "If she doesn't cooperate, we can't proceed." Michael's stomach twisted. Blood rushed in his ears as he watched the horrifying scene unfold. This was worse than he imagined. This wasn't just about stolen equipment. It was about something far more sinister. "Tell us where it is, or you'll regret it," the masked man yelled, voice dripping with menace. Lily shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know what you're talking about. Please, I just want to leave." The sickening realization hit Michael like a brick. They weren't after him at all. They didn't care about the janitor. This was about control. The equipment, the explosion, it was all a cover for something darker. He had to save her. Before he could think, he threw open the door. "Get away from her!" he shouted, adrenaline surging through him. The figures turned, wide-eyed with shock. Stanton's face morphed from surprise to rage. "Michael, you're too late!" he growled, pulling a gun from his pocket. Time froze, the gun glinting ominously under the flickering lab lights. Michael's whole body went cold. He wasn't prepared for this. He stepped back, his heart racing, caught in a web of terror. Just then, the building shook again. This time, it wasn't just a rumble. It felt like an earthquake. Lights flickered, and the sound of breaking glass echoed through the corridor. Dust and debris began to fall from the ceiling, and Michael knew the lab wasn't safe. "Run!" He yelled at Lily, urging her towards the exit. But she hesitated, terrified. Stanton yelled back, "Don't let them leave! We can't let them disrupt everything!" As chaos erupted around them, the ground quaked beneath their feet. It was as if the universe itself was trying to tear everything apart. Michael felt a surge of urgency. If they didn't escape now, they might never get the chance. But just as he reached for Lily's hand, a blinding flash enveloped the room. The world tilted, and then everything went dark. When the dust settled, a silence fell, heavy and foreboding. Michael opened his eyes, pain shooting through him. He was alone. The lab was wrecked, debris scattered like broken dreams. And there was no sign of Lily or Stanton. Had they gotten away? Had the explosion taken them both? In the eerie stillness, reality sank in. The twisted truth was more convoluted than he could have imagined. With his heart pounding, Michael's mind raced. What had really happened? Who could he trust? And then he remembered the paper with secret funding scrawled across it. It fluttered from his pocket, landing amidst the rubble. Perhaps there were answers hidden in that mystery. But first he needed to survive this nightmare. With renewed determination, Michael pushed himself to his feet, the weight of the unknown hanging heavily in the air. He couldn't leave Lily behind, and he wouldn't rest until he uncovered the truth, no matter the cost. Michael opened his eyes, the pain in his body radiating like 1,000 explosions. Dust swirled around him, stinging his eyes as he struggled to sit up. The lab was transformed into a scene of chaos. Broken glass glittered like stars against the floor. Smoke hung thick in the air, and the silence felt suffocating. "Lily!" he shouted, but his voice sounded small, lost in the wreckage. Panic clawed at his insides. Where was she? Had she escaped? Had Stanton taken her? He pushed through the debris, fear fueling his urgent crawl. The lab was a palace of ruin, and he was a lone survivor, searching for life amidst the destruction. Just then, he noticed something moving in the shadows. A silhouette creeping along the far wall. "Lily?" he called. His heart racing. The figure froze. It took a moment, but then it stepped into the light. It wasn't Lily at all. It was Professor Stanton. His face was smeared with soot, but Michael could see the crazed look in his eyes. "Stanton, where is she?" Michael demanded, fists clenched. The professor grinned, a twisted smile that sent shivers down Michael's spine. "You're too late, Michael. She's gone, for good." Those words stung like ice. But before Michael could process the shock, the man lunged at him, knocking him back down. A metallic clang echoed in the broken room. Michael flailed, trying to regain his footing, when a voice boomed from the corridor. "Stop right there!" Two officers burst into the lab, guns drawn. The tension snapped like a wire. Stanton's eyes widened in panic, and he turned, sprinting towards the nearest exit, but Michael was quicker, tackling him to the ground. The officers moved in, ready to cuff him, but the chaos erupted anew. Another explosion rattled the building, making the officers stumble. Dust fell like rain, and Michael shielded his eyes. Was this place cursed? In the commotion, Michael could swear he heard Lily's name being shouted. His heart sank. The officers were focused on Stanton, but Michael was too concerned. "She needs help! Where is she?" he yelled, his voice wavering. One officer turned, brow furrowed in confusion. "Who?" "Lily, the lab assistant. Stay put. We can't search until we secure this area." "Damn it, you don't understand," Michael yelled, pushing past them. "She's in danger!" With sheer desperation, he ran deeper into the rubble, ignoring the orders. He had to find her. Suddenly, a desperate cry echoed through the tangled mess of machinery and broken glass. "Michael! Lily!" he shouted back, racing towards the sound. He stumbled through the debris, lungs burning with each breath. As he turned a corner, he spotted her. But it wasn't just her. She was with someone. His heart lurched. It was the masked man, the one with the syringe. They were trapped against the wall, and Lily's eyes were wide with fear, her hands bound. The urgency in the air crackled like static. "Really, no!" he cried, rushing to her side. But just as he took a step, The masked man pointed something, not a syringe, but a small bomb, its timer ticking ominously. "Stay back," the figure shouted. "She'll be the price if you move." Time froze. Michael froze. The world shrank down to the two of them. "Stanton set you up, didn't he?" he shouted, realization slicing through the chaos. "It wasn't just theft, was it? What's the truth?" The masked man sneered. "You're smarter than I thought. But that doesn't change your fate. Someone has to pay for Stanton's little game." Before Michael could react, the masked man hit a button on the device. A bright light exploded in the darkness, blinding him. "No!" he screamed. But it was too late. In that moment, reality shifted. The light enveloped him, and everything shattered around him, leaving nothing but a deafening crescendo. His breath came in gasps. The world felt like it was spinning out of control. As the silence fell again, he felt an eerie calm, but something was different. He opened his eyes once more. Everything had changed. He was outside the lab, but the campus was different. The sun hung low in a strange sky, and the air was thick with an unshakable tension. Then he turned. Right in front of him stood Lily, unbound, unhurt, but her eyes held a truth he didn't understand. "You have to listen to me, Michael." What had just happened? Why did it feel like he had stepped into another world? The piece of paper with secret funding slipped from his pocket, fluttering to the ground, a faint reminder of everything he had just fought through. "Michael, we don't have time," she urged. But something in her voice made the hairs on his neck stand up. He felt a knot form in his stomach, a chill of fear creeping in. What had happened while he wasn't looking? And why did everything feel so wrong? Michael opened his eyes, the pain in his body radiating like 1,000 explosions. Dust swirled around him, stinging his eyes as he struggled to sit up. The lab was transformed into a scene of chaos. Broken glass glittered like stars against the floor. Smoke hung thick in the air, and the silence felt suffocating. "Lily," he shouted, but his voice sounded small, lost in the wreckage. Panic clawed at his insides. Where was she? Had she escaped? Had Stanton taken her? He pushed through the debris, fueling his urgent crawl. The lab was a palace of ruin, and he was a lone survivor searching for life amidst the destruction. Just then, he noticed something moving in the shadows, a silhouette creeping along the far wall. "Lily?" he called, his heart racing. The figure froze. It took a moment, but then it stepped into the light. It wasn't Lily at all. It was Professor Stanton. His face was smeared with soot, but Michael could see the crazed look in his eyes. "Stanton, where is she?" Michael demanded, fists clenched. The professor grinned, a twisted smile that sent shivers down Michael's spine. "You're too late, Michael. She's gone, for good." Those words stung like ice. But before Michael could process the shock, the man lunged at him, knocking him back down. A metallic clang echoed in the broken room. Michael flailed, trying to regain his footing, when a voice boomed from the corridor. "Stop right there!" Two officers burst into the lab, guns drawn. The tension snapped like a wire. Stanton's eyes widened in panic. And he turned, sprinting towards the nearest exit, but Michael was quicker, tackling him to the ground. The officers moved in, ready to cuff him, but the chaos erupted anew. Another explosion rattled the building, making the officers stumble. Dust fell like rain, and Michael shielded his eyes. Was this place cursed? In the commotion, Michael could swear he heard Lily's name being shouted. His heart sank. The officers were focused on Stanton, but Michael was too concerned. "She needs help. Where is she?" he yelled, his voice wavering. One officer turned, brow furrowed in confusion. "Who?" "Lily, the lab assistant." "Stay put. We can't search until we secure this area." "Damn it, you don't understand," Michael yelled, pushing past them. "She's in danger." With sheer desperation, he ran deeper into the rubble, ignoring the orders. He had to find her. Suddenly, a desperate cry echoed through the tangled mess of machinery and broken glass. "Michael!" "Lily!" he shouted back, racing towards the sound. He stumbled through the debris, lungs burning with each breath. As he turned a corner, he spotted her. But it wasn't just her. She was with someone. His heart lurched. It was the masked man, the one with the syringe. They were tracked against the wall, and Lily's eyes were wide with fear, her hands bound. The urgency in the air crackled like static. "Lily, no!" he cried, rushing to her side. But just as he took a step, the masked man pointed something. Not a syringe, but a small bomb, its timer ticking ominously. "Stay back," the figure shouted. "She'll be the price if you move." Time froze. Michael froze. The world shrank down to the two of them. "Stanton set you up, didn't he?" he shouted, realization slicing through the chaos. "It wasn't just theft, was it? What's the truth?" The masked man sneered. "You're smarter than I thought. But that doesn't change your fate. Someone has to pay for Stanton's little game." Before Michael could react, the masked man hit a button on the device. A bright light exploded in the darkness, blinding him. "No!" he screamed. But it was too late. In that moment, reality shifted. The light enveloped him, and everything shattered around him, leaving nothing but a deafening crescendo. His breath came in gasps. The world felt like it was spinning out of control. As the silence fell again, he felt an eerie calm, but something was different. He opened his eyes once more. Everything had changed. He was outside the lab, but the campus was different. The sun hung low in a strange sky, and the air was thick with an unshakable tension. Then he turned. Right in front of him stood Lily, unbound, unhurt, but her eyes held a truth he didn't understand. "Michael, we don't have time." He blinked. Something was off. Her demeanor was too calm, too collected. "Lily, what's happening?" Panic twisted in his gut. "Michael, I have to tell you something," she said, stepping closer but with a guarded look. He sensed a deeper hesitance layered beneath her worry. "You can't trust anyone. Not Stanton, not even me." "What? Why? What are you talking about?" She hesitated, and that moment stretched painfully. "Remember that night in the lab, when I found the funding records? They weren't just for research, Michael. They were part of something so much bigger." His heart raced. "What do you mean?" In that split second, the ground shook beneath them, a deep rumble that shook everything to its core. A fissure opened in the ground, swallowing a part of the campus. Michael instinctively grabbed Lily's hand, but the ground beneath her slipped. "Lily!" he shouted as she dangled over the edge, holding on to him for dear life. "Don't let go!" she cried, her face a mask of fear. But then, it happened. As he pulled her up, a look of triumph flickered across her face. "You never understood, did you?" With a strength he didn't expect, she twisted, flipping the hold. In an instant, she pulled him down into the darkness below. "Was sent to keep you quiet," she screamed, her voice echoing into the void. Stunned, he watched as her figure disappeared, leaving him teetering on the brink of chaos. His mind reeled. How could she? What had just happened? And just like that, everything spiraled into darkness. Michael felt himself plummet into darkness, the coldness swallowing him whole. The moment stretched unbearably, and then impact. He gasped as he landed hard on a cold, metallic surface. His body ached, but the thudding in his chest felt more intense. Had Lily pushed him down? Or had she been trying to escape? Struggling to his feet, he squinted through the thick shadows, disoriented. "Lily," he called, his voice trembling. The sound echoed eerily, bouncing off the steel walls that surrounded him. No answer. Panic surged again, gnawing at his insides. He had to find her. He stumbled forward, his heart racing. The air was thick and stale, each breath a challenge. As he turned a corner, he found himself in a narrow corridor lined with glowing red lights, casting a sinister hue over everything. He was deep inside some kind of underground facility. Whispers of dread filled his ears. Every step resonated with looming danger. Then he heard it again, a cry. This time it wasn't just Lily's voice, it was accompanied by others. A group of muffled voices speaking urgently, and something else, something sharp and dangerous. "Get away from her!" Michael's heart dropped. It was Lily. Without thinking, he rushed towards the sound. The voices grew clearer, and then he rounded a corner to see a horrifying sight. Lily, bound to a chair, thrashing against the restraints as a figure loomed over her. A man in a lab coat, another he had never seen before, was brandishing a needle with a menacing grin. "Let her go!" Michael shouted, adrenaline driving him forward. The man turned, his expression shifting from amusement to shock. You're supposed to be out of the way. Out of the way?" That phrase struck Michael like a lightning bolt. Before he could process it, the man lunged at him. But Michael was quick. He dodged and tackled him to the ground, fists flying. This was for Lily. He couldn't let anything happen to her. "Stop! You don't understand!" The man gasped, panic seeping into his voice. But Michael wasn't listening. He saw red, fueled by fear. Just as he got the upper hand, something metallic clattered to the ground. A small device with a lit screen jostled near his feet. He glanced down. It counted down from 10. "Wait!" Michael shouted, suddenly grasping their situation. "What did you do?" The man's eyes widened. "You shouldn't have come here. It was all a test. The explosion was never about theft. It was about retaliation." The two words hit Michael with a wave of confusion. Retaliation? Then everything became blindingly clear. This wasn't just about stolen equipment or lab secrets anymore. It was about a larger scheme, one involving Lily, Stanton, and possibly the university itself. Michael barely had time to react when the device beeped rapidly. 5, 4, "Lily!" he yelled, rushing to free her. The restraints were tight, but he pulled and yanked until one broke loose. "Michael, what's happening?" she gasped, catching her breath, fear and confusion in her eyes. "Just trust me," he shouted, untying her quickly. But before they could escape, an explosion erupted again, shaking the corridor. The floor cracked beneath them, and Michael felt gravity pull towards the abyss. "No!" he screamed, grabbing Lily's hand as they dropped into a tunnel of darkness. But instead of hitting the ground, they fell into a strange room, illuminated by screens flashing data and something chilling. Pictures, videos, ones Michael recognized. A montage of him, spying, sneaking around the lab. Everything he had done was laid bare on those screens. "Welcome to the truth," a familiar voice echoed. It was Stanton. "You're exactly where you need to be." "That's not possible!" Michael shouted, the shock reflecting in his eyes, and it hit him hard. This wasn't just a conflict of theft and lies. It was personal. "What do you mean?" Lily asked, panic rising in her voice. "Everything, all of it, was orchestrated. I needed an insider," Stanton continued, smirking with triumphant malice. Michael's heart raced. "You were using me?" "Of course," Stanton shrugged, pulling a lever. The screens shifted to show a live feed of their university. "And now you're too deep to back out." As the walls closed in, Michael felt the walls of reality shatter around him. "What have you done?" Lily looked at him, fear written across her features. "Michael, what do we do now?" But as confusion swirled, everything flipped again. There was a blinding flash, and then they weren't just within the facility. They were back on the surface, standing in a courtyard filled with students. Only now, a title flashed across the sky above. Mistake or mission? What just happened? And why were they back? He looked at Lily, but something was different. She wasn't just worried. She was watching him carefully, her eyes narrowed in a way he had never seen before. "Michael," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the murmurs of the crowd. "You really don't understand, do you? None of this was an accident." The weight of her words sank in like a stone, and his throat tightened. The truth was far more twisted than he ever imagined. As the students around them erupted into chaotic discussions, Michael felt the world tilt once more. What was real? What was a setup? And why did it feel like the ground was ready to give way again? Michael felt suspended in uncertainty, caught between the chaos of the past moments and the eerie stillness surrounding him. The crowd of students moving around him blurred into a backdrop, their discussions fading into a fog as he focused solely on Lily. "What do you mean?" he pressed, searching her face for the truth behind her words. "None of this was an accident," she said, a tremor in her voice. "Everything, this explosion, the thefts, was planned. You and I are just pawns in their game." The air was thick with tension. Students milled around, unaware of the turmoil unfolding just a few feet away. Michael's heart raced. "Whose game? What are you talking about?" Before she could answer, the ground shook violently beneath them. The earth trembled as a deep rumble echoed through the quad, dislodging branches and sending students stumbling. "What's happening?" he shouted, looking around in panic. Then, without warning, the buildings surrounding them erupted into chaos. A blinding light shot up from the lab, followed by a deafening roar. Windows shattered, and debris rained down like confetti. Screams filled the air, wiping out the remnants of ordinary campus life. "Run!" Michael screamed, grabbing Lily's hand, pulling her away from the chaos. But as they dashed towards the exit, he caught a glimpse of something, a figure emerging from the smoke. It was Stanton, his clothes torn and bloodied, but alive. He looked at Michael with an intensity that made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. "You're too late," Stanton bellowed through the chaos, his voice filled with rage and vindication. "This was all part of a bigger picture. You'll never understand." Michael's mind raced. What did he mean? Before he could ask, Stanton pressed a button on a device strapped to his wrist. Another explosion followed, launching Michael and Lily to the ground. The world spun, and as he lay there stunned, A realization gripped him. Lily, we have to get to safety. He turned to grab her, but she was already standing, staring wide-eyed at Stanton. You don't get it, do you, Michael? She called to him, a manic energy radiating from her. I wasn't sent to help you. I was sent to eliminate you. His heart plummeted. What? No, you're lying. No, I'm not. Her voice cracked. I've been working with Stanton the whole time. There's a lot more at stake than you realize. Ah, the betrayal hit him like a physical blow. How could you? The betrayal twisted in his gut, anger mixing with disbelief. Stanton laughed, the sound cutting through Michael's despair like a knife. She was my inside woman. You thought you were uncovering the truth, but you were digging your own grave. Lily, please, he pleaded, feeling the walls close in around him. You can't be serious. Michael, they've already seen how valuable you are. You're worth more to them, gone. A surge of adrenaline pushed him to his feet. The chaos around him faded as he focused solely on the danger before him. Get away from her, he yelled, stepping toward Stanton. But it was too late. With another flick of his wrist, Stanton activated the device once more. The ground shook beneath them, and cracks began to form, opening deep chasms in the earth. Panic spread through the crowd. Everyone out, now! Michael reached for Lily, but she stepped back, her eyes cold. You taught me everything I know, Michael. You really thought you could? Save this place. Lily, he shouted, desperation leaking into his voice. We can still get out of here together. But as the last remnants of trust slipped away, she shook her head. You're too late. This is how it ends. He felt a knot in his stomach, a whirlwind of emotions. The ground beneath them began to cave in, and he realized there was no time left. With one last look at her, he bolted, racing for safety. But the truth crashed down on him like a tidal wave. Everything he thought he knew had shattered in an instant. And as he glanced back, the sight of her, once a beacon of hope, now twisted in betrayal, would haunt him forever. The sky darkened and chaos reigned as the world crumbled around him. What had he missed? What else was hidden in the shadows? As he sprinted toward an uncertain future, one thought clawed at him. This was just the beginning of a nightmare far worse than he could ever imagine. Michael stumbled through the debris, heart racing as chaos reigned around him. The explosion had ripped through the campus, fragments of glass and concrete raining down like confetti on a dark celebration. Adrenaline surged as he darted through the throngs of panicked students. Lily, he called out, desperation clawing at his throat. But the air crackled with confusion and fear, drowning out all reason. He dodged falling rubble, his mind racing. Where was she? What had happened? Each unanswered question tightened the knot in his stomach. As he reached the quad, a familiar figure emerged through the smoke. It was Stanton, eyes wild, clothes torn, but he stood tall amidst the chaos, a twisted smile lingering on his lips. Michael, Stanton shouted over the chaos. You still don't get it, do you? This was never about the lab or the equipment. This is bigger than you can imagine. Shut up, Michael yelled, fists clenching. Where's Lily? Oh, she's exactly where she needs to be, Stanton laughed, a manic glimmer in his eyes. Just think, this was a systematic reckoning. You were just the pawn in my game. Michael's hands shook with anger, but he forced himself to breathe. He had to find Lily. He pushed past the professor, moving deeper into the chaos. Lily, he called again, heart hammering, every breath laced with dread. And then he heard her voice. Michael, The sound cut through the haze, grounding him. He turned toward her, racing toward the source. But when he found her, bound and cornered against a wall, his breath caught. "Michael, help me!" she cried, her voice trembling. Fear etched across her features made his heart ache. The masked man stood over her, smug and threatening. "You should have stayed away, Janitor." "Let her go," Michael shouted, anger exploding within. But before he could reach them, Stanton materialized at his side. "You really think you can save her?" he taunted, stepping closer, a cruel delight in his eyes. "You've always been too weak." Just then, the ground shook again, a tremor that felt alive, alive with destruction. Could feel the walls caving in, the world shifting. "Now you'll see the true power of the lab," Stanton yelled, flicking a switch on his device. The masked man grinned, raising the syringe. "You think you can make a difference? It's too late for that." "No!" Michael shouted. He lunged, but the floor gave way beneath him. Everything fell into chaos. Students screamed, the world spun, and the last thing he saw was a bright light. Then darkness enveloped him. He awoke in a surreal landscape, a grassy field under bright blue skies. What just happened? He blinked, bewildered, and there stood Lily. But she was different. Her expression was cold and calculating. "Michael," she said softly, but there was a familiar edge in her voice he didn't like. "You don't understand everything yet." "What do you mean? Where are we?" His voice trembled slightly. "Here is just the beginning." Her eyes shimmered, revealing flashes of something darker. "You are part of something much bigger, and it's not over." Before he could respond, a rumbling sound echoed behind her, and fear gripped him. The ground shook, and fissures opened wide as shadows of the chaos from before loomed. Stanton materialized, his laughter echoing like thunder. "Welcome back, Michael." Michael felt the walls closing in again, but he stood his ground. "What do you want from us?" The question hung heavy in the air. "It's simple. You are the key to controlling everything. You always were." Adrenaline surged down his spine, and he turned to Lily. What is he talking about? But she just smirked, the truth lurking behind her eyes. The splintering reality began to bleed together again, the fears mixing with the unknown. "Tell me the truth," he yelled, heart pounding in his chest. And then, with a final tremor, the skies pulsed with light, and everything shifted once more. Michael opened his eyes again, this time back in the quad. Students were still scattering around him, oblivious to the horror that had just unfolded. But now, an unmistakable tension hung in the air, a whisper of impending doom. "Michael, we have to go." Lily grabbed his hand, urgency in her voice. This was all too much. He gazed into her eyes, bewildered. What's happening? The crowd moved around them, a kaleidoscope of urgency, but he felt the weight of their world on his shoulders. "We have to find Stanton," Michael insisted. As they ran into the fray, a chill crept down his back. What was real? What was a trick? And as they disappeared into the mass of chaos, one question hung in the air, lingering like smoke. Were they truly safe, or was this just the beginning of a nightmare yet to come? Urgent call to action. You need to subscribe now to not miss exclusive upcoming stories that will blow your mind. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm and help us reach more amazing people like you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. And don't wait another second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear this final twist. Your support matters, and only true fans understand it. Let's keep this community thriving.